Hello, I'm Lucy from In the Midst of Madness, and today I wanted to talk about unsolicited advice. Now, I wanted to get this sort of done early into the videos because it's something I've really experienced with my blog and also with my Facebook posts, and which was kind of how my blog started off. And it's also something that I really notice sort of in my wider environment, and it was something that I noticed in a lot of comments on mental health posts and from mental health charities. So yeah, I just wanted to talk about unsolicited advice. So sometimes people will post something and they will actually ask for advice, and that's fair enough for you to give advice. The problem is that a lot of the time people like me will post something and people that we don't even know will then get in touch, and without us saying anything about wanting to kind of be fixed or anything like that, we will just get messages from people or comments saying, oh, have you tried this? Why don't you do that? Why are you doing it this way? You shouldn't be doing that. And this is where it gets kind of really damaging. So I will kind of start off by saying that I know that people mean well, and I know that people are kind of saying these things with the best of intentions, but I was very much kind of brought up knowing that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and just because you are trying to do the right thing and be kind doesn't mean that what you're doing is good. And that can be really hard for people to realise, and they often get really defensive when you kind of say, actually, it's not your place to do this. But I know a huge number of people who are mentally ill, and probably physically ill as well, will have experienced an awful lot of well-intended advice that's actually really, well, at best, it's kind of irritating. And at worst it can be really dangerous and damaging. So I'm going to give you kind of a few examples of the things that have happened to me, which are kind of the reasons why I'm doing this video, so that you can kind of see what I mean, because actually people who haven't been ill kind of long term probably haven't experienced this, and so you're probably sat there thinking, well, that's so mean, why are you picking up on people trying to be kind? But I'm hoping that kind of after the examples you'll sort of see what I mean and why this needs to stop. And also it's kind of a plea for anyone sort of watching my videos or reading my posts to please not do this to me. So some of the kind of more light-hearted things are, I recently had someone get in touch with me who had read my, there's a 6 snippets about me, which was my first ever blog post. It was meant to be 10, but I couldn't think of any more, so it ended up being 6. Anyway, one of them was that I was saying that my favourite thing to eat is cake, and that I love tea. And I had someone message me who doesn't know me at all, who has no idea of how much I do or don't eat or drink cake and tea, saying you shouldn't have that, you should just eat sugar-free cake and have decaf tea or alternatives. And I know this was meant well, but I'm an adult. I'm nearly 27, and I don't really need to be told what to do. I don't go around telling people who are overweight that they shouldn't be eating a burger. Like, you have every right to eat what you want, when you want, and I have a psychology degree, and I worked in a hospital. I know what things I should and shouldn't be doing, so I don't really eat sugar. And if I have cake, I have it with a lot of water or tea. Like, my whole family know that I will not ever eat cake on its own. I can't eat things like candy floss or anything like that I used to love as a child, and I barely ever eat chocolate or anything like that, but occasionally I do, and it's a treat. And I take my beta blockers, which are the thing that lowers my heart rate and keeps that in check, and it's not the cause of my anxiety. I'm not anxious because I eat cake. So it can kind of feel a bit offensive when people start giving you really simplistic ways of kind of fixing your life. I've also had people suggest that I go to therapy, which in and of itself is kind of fine. I had one person get in touch with me offering me therapy for autism, I'm not autistic. I've never even been investigated for autism. So I found that kind of verging on offensive, because it was just so utterly irrelevant. It also turned out that she ran this company, so I realised it was basically a sales post. But whatever. But then we get on to the kind of more damaging one, and actually the one that really sticks in my mind is, I commented a number of years ago, probably about 3, on a post by the charity Mind, and they were asking about people's experiences of medication, and possibly of inpatient treatment as well. I can't actually remember. Anyway, at the time, I was on an anti-anxiety drug, and a lot of you who are kind of seasoned readers of my blog will know that I don't have a good reaction to medication, and I have quite a rare reaction to medication. But yeah, I was on the last drug that I have ever tried, and it was making me really ill. So I don't think my comment was written in the best of places at all. I don't actually even remember what I wrote, but I know it was something about medication and that I was honest and that it was making me really poorly. Anyway, this woman who I don't know commented, and she wrote quite a kind comment, and then she added me as a friend. And at the time, I did accept friend requests from people who kind of seemed okay and who wanted to kind of chat. And for the record, I now don't do this. Facebook is my only social media that isn't dedicated entirely to my blogs and my reviews. And so, no offence to anybody, but if I don't know you in real life, I won't be adding you or accepting friend requests. So I'm very flattered, but it's nothing against any of you. It's just that I need to have a place where I can kind of vent and swear and just be completely me. And I will do that on these videos, but I also kind of need to have my own little space that isn't Lucy the blogger. It's just Lucy. So yeah, I don't add people now, and this is one of the reasons why. So yeah, this lady added me, and she messaged me, and she was asking me about kind of my conditions and what medication I was on. And this woman had no medical professional kind of skills. She's not a doctor, she's not a nurse, she hasn't worked in a psychiatric unit, and it turned out that her son has schizophrenia, and the medication he has been on has made him very unwell, which is something that I've certainly seen in patients when I was working in the psychiatric unit I was working in, and medication for schizophrenia is not nice. It comes with some really horrible side effects, but generally the view is that those are outweighed by the benefits of getting the condition under control and getting rid of some of the symptoms that the condition causes. Anyway, she outright said to me that I should not be on medication, that it's dangerous and that it doesn't help, and she just kept using all of these blanket statements, and it made me so angry. And this is because mental illness is like an umbrella term. It's the term used for any condition pretty much that affects the brain, and anything that doesn't have a noticeably kind of physical cause. And the idea that you can lump all mental illnesses together is absolutely ludicrous. So obviously we categorise things as mental illness or physical illness, but they're not all treated the same, and you can't make the same generalisations about all of them. And so things like anxiety and depression are very different in every way from schizophrenia or bipolar or all sorts of other conditions. And they require different medication, they require different treatment, there are different symptoms, obviously they've got a different prognosis and diagnostic criteria, and they're just completely different. And to kind of take your experience of one condition and then just tell everyone else, well, my son was made worse by meds, so no one should take them, is just so utterly damaging. I mean, there are thousands of people that would be dead without psychiatric medication. I'm not one of them. Psychiatric meds make me really ill, and it has now been agreed, kind of between me and my psychiatrist, who I no longer see, but at the time, that I won't be trying meds anymore. And I had to give it a really good go. I think I've been on 8 different types, and they either have no effect or they make me really, really unwell. I get horrendous side effects, both physical and psychological, and I don't get any relief afterwards. So antidepressants and things like that can sort of take about a month to start kicking in and working, but I've been on them for like 3-4 plus months, and it doesn't work on me. And there are a number of people that are like me. We are quite rare, but there are people like me who have a really, really bad reaction to these drugs. And between my psychiatrist and myself and my family, we've decided that I shouldn't do that anymore. And I really had to give it a good go. I even though I know how ill they make me, I still have periods of time where I think maybe I'll just try one more. Because I'm so desperate to get better. I'm so desperate for there to be any sort of fix that doesn't require me just waiting and hoping that the condition will just disappear on its own. But seemingly that's what we're waiting for. But yeah, so having this woman just swoop in with no medical knowledge and just tell me what to do was, yeah, really, really kind of upsetting and quite angering. And unfortunately, it's what a lot of patients did when I was in the hospital I was working in. If a drug hadn't worked for one, then some of them would kind of say to others, well, you shouldn't be on that, it doesn't work. And when you're an inpatient, you're kind of at your worst. You're at your most vulnerable, and being told to stop taking the drugs that you're being told to take is really, really harmful. And I know, I do know that this lady absolutely meant well. I've since had to delete her because she kept on at me about things. I can't even remember what else, but it takes a lot for me to delete someone. I'm not that kind of person. I put up with quite a lot more than I really should. And yeah, I remember I did end up deleting her because it just got too much. And she was asking me for advice about her son, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know your son. I don't really know anything about schizophrenia. I can't help. And it's so dangerous when you don't know a person to start just telling them, oh, you should take this, oh, you shouldn't take that, why are you doing that? Because we're really vulnerable when we're ill, and we can be quite easily swayed and quite susceptible to sort of miracle cures or people telling us that we shouldn't be doing something. And we hear it a lot, and actually you might not be the only person saying don't take the meds. But if our doctor is, then we can end up not trusting our doctor because our doctor's saying, well, take these mind-altering drugs, but everyone else is going, yeah, but you're not the same, you're not you don't need those. Because a lot of people are really, really against pharmaceuticals. They don't think that you should have to rely on a drug in order to be well. But every person with these conditions is different. So I have various diagnoses, including depression and anxiety, and I've got 3 different anxiety diagnoses. But I am not the same as the next person that has exactly the same diagnoses. Will be similar. There'll be certain things that both of us get anxious about or that both of us cope well with, and then there will be completely different things. So, like, I'm needle phobic, but plenty of people with anxiety aren't. I am absolutely terrified of vomiting and getting sick, and other people with emetophobia will also be like that, but everyone has sort of different levels. So, like, some people will kind of stop eating certain foods completely because of the risk of them being contaminated or them being more likely to, like, give you food poisoning. I still eat meat. Meat is far more likely to give you food poisoning than, like, chips or, I don't know, washed fruit and veg. But I do still eat meat. But then there are certain things that I wouldn't eat, or wouldn't eat in certain places because of the risk. And everyone is different. So, like with my needle phobia, I have managed to just about get over my phobia of injections. So I know that having an injection is much better and much more preferable to getting the horrendous disease that it's protecting against. And please, I don't want any anti-vax comments. I am pro-vaccination. Don't even bother trying to change my mind. So please, don't do that. That's not what this is about. It's specifically about the needles. And yeah, so I have managed to kind of train my brain to realise that yes, it hurts, but it is okay, and it's much better than the sheer number of needles you would need if I got like measles or any of the other horrible diseases that I'm protected against. Blood tests, on the other hand, are extremely difficult for me, and I have managed to come up with kind of ways of dealing with it, but it's not easy, and it's not really even something I want to talk about because it starts making me hot and I start having pictures in my head of needles, and it's not good. But yeah, every needle phobic will be different. Every person with generalised anxiety disorder is different. We all worry about different things. So we have similarities. We all worry about general things and lots of things, but those specific things will be different. And sometimes the treatment needs to be different. We all have different biology, and having just sweeping advice from someone who has experience with one person, either themselves or someone else, is just so unhelpful, and it so often leads to feelings of failure. So I often feel like it's my fault that these drugs haven't worked on me, and that's absolutely ridiculous. But I often even feel blamed. I will actually feel blamed by people for the fact that these medications haven't worked. And actually even one of my GPs pretty much kind of cemented that in my head. Because when I first got ill with these anxiety disorders, I was put on 2 different drugs separately. So I was put on one, and then when that one didn't work, I was put on another. And she would phone up each week to check how I was doing. And I was saying, I am experiencing extreme side effects. This is making me so ill. And I was just utterly desperate for them to work, but they weren't, and I looked horrendous and felt horrendous. And all she really said on the phone was, well, just keep going, keep thinking positive, keep trying. I was like, try what? Willing them to work? That isn't how medication works. It's not a case of willpower. When I'm on the verge of vomiting, or when I'm absolutely starving and getting fat because I was hungry every few hours, despite eating a full meal, I would need to eat again within sort of 2 or 3 hours, because I was so hungry. It was just soul destroying, hearing a doctor telling me to try harder and to think positive and all of those kinds of things. It was so unhelpful, and I haven't actually been back to that doctor because I can't. She's fantastic for physical stuff, but I will not go back to her for mental health stuff because she just doesn't understand. It doesn't matter how much you want these drugs to work. If they don't work on you, they don't work on you. And it's taken so many years for me to realise this. Like I was first put on antidepressants when I was 16, and I'm about to turn 27. And it's only been the last 2 years that I've not been on meds. Now, I wasn't on meds for the whole of that time, but for 8 years I've been trying different drugs, many of them multiple times. And I can't do it anymore. And so when I get someone going, oh well, my aunt was cured by going on Prozac, so that's great, and I am so pleased for your aunt, but I'm not her. And it's not my fault. And I think so many people don't realise that these conditions are all different, and they're different from each other. And so telling me that your friend with OCD was cured by a drug is completely irrelevant to me. I don't have an obsessive compulsive disorder. I have an anxiety disorder and a depressive disorder. And even those, I won't work. Sorry, I'm completely fluffing this now, but I won't respond in the same way to the same treatments as everybody else. because we just don't. That's why there isn't one antidepressant and one anti-anxiety drug and one drug for schizophrenia. It's why there are absolutely hundreds, because they don't all work for everybody, or some people will get side effects that they can't manage and some people won't. Some people will manage that and it will go really quickly. We are all completely different. And so, yeah, it's kind of like having a cancer patient and a diabetic talking about treatment, and the cancer patient saying to the diabetic, well, I don't need insulin, what are you taking insulin for? They're two totally separate conditions. Like, one can't process sugar, and one has a tumour that's trying to kill them. You can't compare the treatments. Someone suffering from delusions and hallucinations and alterations in their reality is very, very different from a person who cannot stop worrying. They're just different. And yeah, some people get so defensive when you kind of really politely say, can you please not talk to me about this, because it's between me and my doctor. And they will just blame you. Actually, that genuinely is what's happened. It's, well, why aren't you taking my advice? You obviously don't want to get better. And it's like, actually, if I took the advice of every single person that's ever offered me advice, I would never have any free time. I would be utterly broke, because I would have spent thousands of pounds on therapy and treatment and cures. Yes, the cures are the best ones. I would have joined up to every major religion and probably some minor ones as well. I'd be doing yoga. I wouldn't eat anything, because everyone has a story about what food cures you. You shouldn't eat too much fruit, you should live off fruit and veg, you shouldn't eat meat, you should eat meat, you shouldn't have dairy. There are thousands, plus I have multiple diagnoses, so good luck trying to get a diet that suits IBS, anxiety and depression, because they all need different foods. And then coping with the fact that there's a lot of food I don't like. And then I get messages from people going, you shouldn't have cake. It's like, cake is like the one thing I look forward to, and I hardly ever have it. It's not like I have it 3 meals a day. I used to have it for breakfast at uni. That didn't do me any good. That I wouldn't advise, and that I won't be doing again. But even then, it was, I either don't eat breakfast, and I don't eat until lunch because I couldn't stomach anything else, or I ate the one food that is my favourite thing in the world. So I had cake, much to my friend's dismay. But yeah, it's personal choice. Like, I was 20 at the time, and if I wanted to have cake for breakfast, I'll damn well have cake for breakfast. I didn't have an anxiety disorder at the time, and it sure as hell isn't what caused it either. I didn't get that until three and a bit years later. But yeah, people mean well, but even diet, like, just because going vegan has helped you doesn't mean it's going to help me. I would be so miserable if I had to live off a vegan diet, and it is not good for IBS. You cannot eat that many beans and pulses. I would have no boyfriend, I would have no social life, because I would just live in a toilet. That's what those foods do. It makes you really ill and in a lot of pain. And so it's great, like the vegans that are loads better, fantastic, good for you. But and by all means, kind of blog about that, vlog about it, tell anyone who wants to listen. But when I'm blogging on my own blog or my own YouTube channel, and I get people going, oh, you should do this, it works. It's like, no, it doesn't work for everybody. And I also make really sure that I don't ever actually ask for advice from people I don't know. I only ever ask for advice from people who know me in real life. I don't think I've ever, in a single one of my over 50 mental health blog posts, I don't think I've ever asked for advice, or asked for people's opinions on my life and my decisions, because you simply don't know enough about me to be able to kind of make those. And like, when people kind of comment to me, I will sympathise. If it sounds like they want advice, then I might kind of make suggestions, but I don't ever say, you should do this. And the things that I advise about are usually things like, I want to stop self-harming, what can I do instead? It's not me going, you mustn't self-harm, you must do this, you must do that. It's, what about trying this? it's not major life changes that are extremely difficult or expensive to implement. And I think that's the huge difference. Like, people don't have that much money. Like, I don't. I don't have an income. So I can't afford to just try the therapies that people often suggest to me. And I've had a lot of therapy and it hasn't worked for me, and that doesn't mean it doesn't work. And whenever people around me in my real life are struggling, I always say, please go and speak to your doctor, please try and get counselling or CBT, or go and do something that might help. Just because I've had the reaction I have to medication doesn't mean that I ever tell anybody not to try meds. I do make them aware that it may not work, but I don't ever say it won't. I know I'm one of the rare ones, but I also have friends who function because of the meds, who get through each day and can get up and out of bed because of the tablets they take. And so I am forever grateful for those being in our lives, even though they don't work for me and I'm absolutely gutted and insanely jealous. It's something that works for some people, and so I always say, if your doctor suggests it, give it a go, try, because you'll never know otherwise. And so many people are quick to judge others for taking medication because it's not natural. It's also not natural to be depressed. It's not natural to want to kill yourself or to be self-harming to get through the day. That's not natural. That's not the way, I don't know, I don't believe in God, but if I did, that's not the way God wanted me to live. It's not the way Mother Nature wants me to live. It's not the way we've evolved. We haven't evolved to self-harm to get through the day. None of those things make sense. Like, we haven't evolved to live with tumours. They kill us. We should do something about it. Depression is kind of like a tumour in your brain. It eats away at your very personality, at your soul, at your likes, your loves, your dreams. We should be doing everything we can to make that better. And if that involves taking tablets, take the tablets. And if those make you ill, don't take the tablets. Not because of just side effects, but if they're not helping you and if your doctor agrees, then don't take the tablets. But for goodness sake, like, listen to professionals. Don't listen to lay people who don't know what they're talking about. Because yes, so many people mean well, but what you've seen on TV is not reality. What the one person you know who has talked to you about an anxiety disorder is not everyone with an anxiety disorder. I am not everyone with an anxiety disorder, as I've said more times than I should have done by now. I am quite rare in the way I respond to meds and treatments. I am not indicative of everybody. And so just because you've watched my videos or read my blogs doesn't mean that what's worked or not worked for me is what you should be advising other people. These are literally me trying to kind of raise awareness and increase understanding. They're not to be used as advice. And it's why I barely ever say what medications I've been on, because I don't want people kind of going to their doctors going, well, this made her worse, so I'm not taking it. Because you're not me. You haven't got my conditions, you're not in my body, you don't have my childhood or my everyday experience. And I don't want to put people off treatments that might cure them, that might improve their functioning by 90%. And I think that's the thing to really remember, is that while you mean well with advice, you could be causing harm, and actually a lot of the time it is much better to suggest to someone to go to a doctor and to talk to someone who is trained and who has worked in the field for years, who has met hundreds of patients with the same conditions, and get them to talk to them and get their advice rather than you, because there are very few people who know enough to be able to actually advise, and most of us who have lived experience actually don't advise others because we know that we're not all the same. So yeah, I've probably really laboured the point, and I'm sorry for that if I have. It sort of ended up being a bit more ranty than I expected. You can tell I'm really passionate about this because it just frustrates the hell out of me. Sorry for a bit of a random gap here. My camera actually cut out, and I just carried on waffling on merrily until I heard it go off and realised I hadn't actually captured everything I was trying to say. So I'm hoping that I can stitch these videos together. But yes, so what I was saying was that, well, I was wrapping up really. But yeah, please don't give advice to people. Please just send them to medical professionals, because we really are all different, and we all need different treatment. And unfortunately, in the case of mental health, a lot of the time the first treatment you try won't work, and you do have to try sort of multiple drugs, multiple therapies, and find out kind of what combination works for you. And that's made a lot harder by people telling you not to do certain things. It really limits the possibilities that you have. And sometimes people won't even offer advice, but they'll make comments about, oh well, if I had depression I wouldn't take meds, they're not natural. But you don't know. A lot of us, I grew up thinking that suicide would never be an option, that it was never something that I would ever remotely consider. I grew up thinking it was selfish, and I now know that that couldn't really be further from the truth. I spent 3 years wishing every day that I would die, not even because I didn't want to live anymore, but because I couldn't cope with the reality that I was facing. I couldn't cope with my life anymore, and that's why you so desperately need treatment, and you need treatment quickly. The quicker you can get treatment, the more likely it is to work, and the better your outcome is likely to be. And all I will suggest or advise in this is, if you think you might be ill, go to a doctor. Don't just talk to the people around you. By all means, do talk to them. Try not to ask them for advice, because they may not know what they're talking about. But go to a doctor. Get professional help, because they're the ones that are trained, they're the ones that know what they're talking about, and they're the ones that can help you, and get you hopefully on the road to recovery as quickly as possible, or at least stop you from spiralling downwards. So yeah, if you must give advice, please let it just be go to a doctor, and follow what they say. So yeah, just be there for people, help them, just do nice things, take people for walks, go and spend time with them, phone them up, check on them via email or Facebook or whatever. Just check in, check they're okay, but leave the treatment side alone. By all means ask what treatment they're being offered, find out how they're doing, but please don't advise them to come off things. Even if it sounds like it's not working, it's up to a doctor. Like, antidepressants take at least 4 weeks to start working. If someone you know is taking them and 2 weeks in they're not cured, they shouldn't be by then. They won't be. That's not how they work. And their doctor will be telling them that, but if they've then got people around them saying, oh well, I don't think you should be taking it, if it's making you unwell and it's not even helping, then come off it. You're not a doctor, you don't know. And even if you are a doctor, you don't know that person's specific case. And so just leave them be. Let them talk about it, let them talk about their frustrations and their fears and all of the worries, because it is quite worrying taking medication for things. But please don't let your opinion stop them from doing things, because we are all completely different, and we can be so judgmental at times. Even like things like birth control, people are so judgmental about that. Like, I've been on the mini pill since I was 18, not because of pregnancy, but because of horrendous periods. And the number of people that have said to me, it's not natural to not have periods. It's like, no, it's not, but it's also not natural to be in bed for a week wishing you were dead because you're in so much pain and trying to deal with that on top of crippling depression. I don't want to have children, so if it kind of messes up my cycle, so be it. I am aware of the risks. I know it increases my risk of certain types of cancer, and I'm going to be gutted if that happens to me, but I'm aware of the risks. And yet so many people feel it's so important to tell you that you shouldn't be doing that, you shouldn't be messing with your cycle, you should be doing this, that and the other. Well, it worked for me. And it's like, but you're not in my body. You don't know about my pain threshold. You don't know about my ability to cope with those kinds of things. You don't have depression on top of horrendously painful periods. And don't judge me. Like, I don't judge other people who whinge about their periods every month, despite there being medication out there that could help them because they don't want to take meds. That's their right. If you don't want to take medication, don't. But if I want to, let me, because it's my body. And I think that's the thing to remember is we are all different, and what's right for you is not necessarily what's right for me. And we all need to be a lot more tolerant of that and a lot more aware of the effects that our advice can have. We had patients in hospital who had come off medication because it didn't seem to be working to them. Part of their condition was that they didn't believe that it was working. And a family member or friend had said, oh, you don't need that. And they came off, and then they relapsed, and then they end up in with us. And it's so frustrating. So it is a huge bugbear of mine, and I really am sorry if this ended up quite angry and ranty and rambling. I hope it's made sense. But yeah, the real kind of take-home message is please don't give advice. And please get people to go and seek professional help. So yeah, I will be back soon, probably with a video. I can't even remember what it's going to be about now. I said it earlier and I'm not actually sure if it's in the video part that I've recorded or in the bit that I was waffling on to myself about. Oh, what was it going to be about? This is so embarrassing. This is awful. Yeah, I have no idea. I know it was something. Oh no! Yes, there we go. There we go. It was about that I am going to talk about the fact that lots of media portrayals and mental health charities kind of talk about cures, and I know I've sort of mentioned that in this, but it's pretty rare. So yeah, I'm going to do kind of a whole video about that at some point because I think it's really important to talk about those kinds of things, because a lot of us kind of become mentally ill and sort of expect this cure, and actually most of us are having to learn to manage and cope with our condition rather than sort of expect a cure. So I definitely want to talk about that at some point in the future. I'm not sure if that'll be the next video. I tend to kind of do them as and when an idea pops into my head. And if there are any ideas for videos that you would like me to talk about, I can't promise anything, but please do pop those in the comments or send me a message, and I will see what I can do, because I definitely want to kind of be doing videos for you guys, as you're the ones watching them. So yeah, if you liked this rambling mess, then please do give me a thumbs up, please do subscribe, and I will be back soon, and thanks for watching. Bye!